wonderful scene. So calm, so serene. Absolutely perfect and pristine and very relaxing. The perfect setting to discuss something really, really awful. So, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're doing another Star Frontiers video here. This is a very odd one that I'm sending out there as a way to kind of describe something that was in my campaign specifically. And I don't think anybody else has got this, but I thought I'm going to set it out there. And if anybody else in the Star Frontiers community wants to maybe use this as inspiration for an idea, go for it. Because as per the thumbnail, and as per my last video about Star Frontiers that I did, there are a lot of different alien races in the Star Frontiers universe, one of which are the Humma, or Hummas. Some people have just referred to plural versions of these creatures as Humma. It is H-U-M-M-A in the Zebulon's Guide to Frontier Space. In my mind, I always call them Hummas, so if this is different from the way you have approached it, I apologize for that. Throughout this video, I'm going to say my Hummas in reference to this alien race. In my campaign, my Hummas were a little different and a little crazy. And as per the thumbnail, they were searching for Duke Leto Atreides. What the heck am I talking about here? This is going to be a long one, so buckle in. When Zebulon's Guide to Frontier Space came out, they introduced a handful of new aliens, like I had done with my own campaign. I had introduced a few new aliens myself. The Hummas were among them. And I remember at the time, I kind of dismissed them briefly. I thought, okay, kangaroo, cat-like warrior race, sure. Clearly, somebody's been looking at the extra supplemental material for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles manga, or possibly the role-playing game of the 80s, where they go down under to Australia, and there are some killer kangaroos there. And I thought, yeah, obviously that's what's going on there. But whatever. At least it's not a guy in a suit. I've always had a problem with any alien that just looks like people. These don't look like people, and I was very on board that. I thought, yes, good, but cat warriors, really? We're going to go in that direction? I really had a problem with them. As far as like the main thrust of not so much how they looked, I liked how they looked, but I could not stand the idea of cat warriors, because I just thought, that's so overused. And we're talking the mid-80s. Like, for me to complain about an overused trope in 1985, 86, there's something going on here. Now, let me just roll the camera back, or roll the time back a bit. So, I had read the Ringworld stories by Larry Niven, which have in them the Kzinti, an alien race that are very cat-like. Cool. Hey, that's original. That's neat. Anybody who owns a cat must know, yeah, if you were to give this thing a gun, that would be quite a fierce creature to ever encounter. So, fine. Love the concept. Yay. And then I would watch Star Trek, the animated series from the 70s, where they had Lieutenant Maress, who was a Cation, I think that's how you pronounce that? A cat-like alien race. At least, I don't think they were warriors. I haven't done enough of a deep dive into the animated series of Star Trek to know if that was a warrior race, but it's a cat-like aliens. Okay, sure, fine. That's okay. I got into Wing Commander later on, and the Kzinti appear in that as well. There's more cat-like warrior race, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting a bit tired of the cat-like alien warrior race. Like, yeah, I get that. And not just in science fiction, not just alien warriors. I was getting a bit tired of the cat-like reflexes, the cat-like person. Anne Rice had written Interview with a Vampire in the late 70s, and Vampire Lestat was always described, or his kin were always described as like these swiftly moving with the cat-like reflexes. And I thought, okay. I'm getting real tired of the cat-like warrior creature. Like, let cats be cats. Leave them alone, okay? Why don't you have any dog-like people around? And whatever. Which I guess the Hummas, in a way, they do cross the line between like cat-like and dog-like and also kangaroo-like. So I wasn't too thrilled with what was being proposed for the Hummas in Zebulon's Guide, with the very small piece of information that we had. And it was around this time that Star Trek The Next Generation was firing up, and there's Lieutenant Worf, part of the crew. That's awesome. Great stuff. We all love Worf. And for those fans in the time who were all like, really, the Klingons are serving aboard the Enterprise? That's ridiculous. Yeah, but it was mentioned in that first season episode. You and the Hummas, you and the Klingons will eventually become fast friends. You'll work together. Okay, great. So you've got Worf and the Klingons now part of the Federation. All right, that's going to make for some interesting sort of conversation and conflict. Okay, cool, great. But what did they do? They turned the Klingons into samurai, and I was so tired of that as well. I was like, really? Oh, you have dishonored my family, and oh, I will have the Klingon tea ceremony. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is really leaning into banal, reused material from many different sources, and I'm not on board. I'm not interested. Please don't do that. So I thought to myself, okay, you've been handed this cat-like warrior race by the Zebulon's Guide. What are you going to do to make it different? I thought, okay, yeah, my Hummas are going to be different. They're going to be damn different. And ask any of my players, oh boy, were they. And we're going to talk about the Hummas themselves, and there is actually a tragedy, a sadness to their entire race that nobody ever found out about. And I'm not suggesting you use this as your way to do your Hummas. You probably already got your Klingon-like Hummas in your campaign, and that's fine. You do you. That's great. Or maybe you've got them based on the Kzinti. That's cool too. No problem with it. But I wanted to make my Hummas weird and challenging and really pushing some envelopes, and I hope by sort of going into this deep dive, you might find, okay, maybe not for your Hummas, but make up your own dog-like alien race or something else and copy and paste across these ideas. You might have yourself a neat new ally, in quotes, more like an enemy. My Hummas were both good guys and bad guys. They were both a benefit and a hazard. They were... You say Humma in my campaign, and instantly the players are like, oh God. Like, they would strike fear into the players. So, maybe if you don't already have Hummas set up this way and you want to go for it, do so. Or if you've already established Hummas a certain way, make up a new race and copy and paste in these ideas if you like, because this really served as a cool source of challenge for my players, and I hope it will for you as well. So first thing I thought to myself is, right, how am I going to make these guys different? They are obviously warriors. I want to stick with that because God knows there might be some module that comes out. A module from TSR for Star Frontiers, post Zebulon's Guide to Frontier Space. I was so naive back then. Anyway, so let's say they release a module that has the Hummas involved and they're still fulfilling their role as a warrior race. I don't want to mess with that, so I'm not going into my Hummas are no longer warriors, but I want to go with a different type of warrior. So I thought, okay, not the samurai thing, not the Klingon thing. I want something different. What's something unique? And for whatever reason, I was reminded of some old Western movie or something where the idea of shooting your opponent in the back was a sign of cowardice. And I thought, when I was a little kid, that seemed dumb to me, that whole premise. What do you mean shooting him in the back is cowardly? That's smart. That's the best thing you can do, is kill somebody by shooting him in the back. You know, look at Gene Hackman. So, yeah, I thought to myself, there's a kernel of something to work with there. Why don't we make the Hummas, let's take that idea of like going against the grain of what is honorable and good and warrior and brave and turn it on its head. Let's make something really nasty. Let's make some nasty warriors. Good case in point is there's the scene in Back to the Future Part 3 and 2, in a way, where Doc Brown discovers that he actually was going to get killed, shot in the back by Buford Tannen. It has this negative trope to it, right? So I just thought to myself, okay, again, let's grasp that notion. Let's take what I thought of as a kid and then run with it. Let's make a warrior race who think, no, the smartest thing you can do is shoot someone in the back, because they never stood a chance. So I started to expand on that, and I was watching the 80s version of Dune, which is where the Duke Leto thing comes in, but I'm going to leave that toward the end. What really caught me in the opening of that film is they talk about all the houses of the Landsraad and how the Emperor is concerned that Duke Leto is becoming very popular, so he's going to give Arrakis to his family. If anybody who's followed Dune, either the new one or the old one, you know this is the main plot, so I'm not spoiling much here. That's how the whole story starts. But I thought to myself, yeah, the houses of the Landsraad, I like that idea of different nations, different groups. So what I did is I took the Hummas and I splintered them into half a dozen different houses. I made half a dozen different Hummas so that you didn't have just the main guy you see in the rule book, but you had like skinny ones and tough ones and like Neanderthal ones, and let's talk about them, shall we? I happen to have my notes right here. I named each of the different Humma groups. I'll call them houses here. They're kind of cousins to each other, genetically a bit different from each other, but obviously the same species. And I thought one of the first things I wanted to do was to go with that idea. I think Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, could come out, and all the Klingons are speaking that Klingon language, and I thought, yeah, I want to grab my own language thing. I want to make a separation with the Hummas from normal player interactions by making their language right off the bat guttural and barking and like a very animalistic sound. So you're going to notice a lot of these different houses of Hummas have got bizarre ways of spelling and also pronouncing. Now that years have gone by, I find it a little bit cringy, but I also found Rel Dakvin cringy when I talked about the Hungry Polecat, and I said, I apologize, that name is awful. I had a lot of Star Frontiers people comment, no, it's a good name, I like it. So I'm going to push past my inner cringe here and just do this verbatim as it was originally written. Feel free to change it or modify it or whatever. But let's start off with their home star system, which I declared is in the southern region of the frontier map. And their star system, I would decide, is called Era. Now, how do you spell that? I did it this way. I remember Andrew, who played Bubba, encountered a Humma and actually had a conversation with him, didn't die from it. And somehow it came up, what is the name of your home star system? And the Humma replied, it's Era. And Andrew was like, wait a minute, how do you spell that? Well, it's a bunch of E's and an R. He's like, your home star system is called Era. That's so cute, Era. And that did not go well for Andrew, but that's the kind of thing, there's going to be a lot of that here where I'm barking and shouting and making weird noises. I'll show you how I spelled it. Maybe your players will have a laugh too. Andrew lived to tell the tale, so I guess that's all right. But Era was the name of their home star system. Their planet was Alray. Okay, how do you spell that? Alray, I guess. Like a lot of this has to be converted from the coughing, spluttering sound of the Humma language to something that is usable for the player. So Alray is their planet and Era is their star system. Now I'll get on to the individual Hummas themselves, the different houses, because they also have similarly almost impossible to say names. We will start off with top of the caste system. I mean, my Hummas all squabbled among each other, and different ones would have different arguments as to who was top of the pecking order, but I'll begin with the crew. These were big, striped, tiger-like Hummas that were considered themselves top of the heap. had a superiority complex, didn't take crap from anybody. They walk around basically thinking that they're better than everybody else, including other Hummas. If treated with a lot of respect, they will tolerate other aliens. We never encountered any, but it was something that I always thought, like, okay, here's kind of the strongest, toughest Hummas for my campaign, and the crew will be rarely ever seen. Never really encountered that much. We never did, actually. But they were the top-notch guys. They only liked one of the particular houses, these guys, who we'll get to in a minute, and they had a constant locking of horns, almost literally, with our second batch of Hummas, the Harim. These guys, now, I couldn't find a good enough picture. They were a lot more big and powerful looking in my version, but this is the closest I could find. They were red, fiery, angry types who would never give anybody any time. Like, the were at least somewhat, I'm the king, I'm the emperor, and if you approach me properly, I will deign to give you the time of day. The Harim, no way. They were encountered once in my campaign, and my players thought, oh, it's a bunch of Hummas. And they noticed they were all like bound, wearing these like black Gothic monk robes. And one thing that was striking is I did mention you can just about see their tail and their legs, the hair on their legs is a bright red color. And they're like, huh, I don't remember ever encountering any red Hummas before. Hey, you guys. And these 6 or 7 Harim turned around and just growled right away. And it kind of sent a shiver down my players. They're like, okay, this is not a normal Humma. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm a little bit on guard now. So, what are the Harim like? They don't like anybody, not even other Hummas. And they particularly envy the frontier for its territory. If they had their chance, they would just take over all of the frontier. Their numbers don't quite match up, so they're like, okay, well, there's more of you than there are of us, so we will just keep away for now, but we're going to draw up plans for you, my friends. They will also sacrifice themselves rather than be taken prisoner, a little bit like the Sathar, and not engage in a pleasant way with anybody. They won't tolerate anybody. Most likely they will attack if ever encountered. Like nearly happened with my players. There was a reason this half dozen Harim were on, I think it was Port Loren, and yeah, the players were suddenly like, oh, these guys are big and tough and I don't really want to go near them. And that was probably wise, because you don't mess with the Harim. Next, we have the Niho, which are the hyena, basically, version of the Hummas. I thought to myself, hey, we're practically already looking like hyenas, so let's just make a proper hyena-like house of Hummas. The Niho, they are thinner, lighter, faster, tend to be scavengers, tend to be that sort of Bedouin, or from Star Wars, Jawa idea, scavenging off other alien races. You would encounter Niho more often in other places than, they're one of the more commonly encountered Hummas. They are willing to tolerate the other aliens a lot more than certainly the first 2 houses, but they really want territory. They want to scavenge and get things. And they will definitely attack any weak character. It's like, oh, take his stuff. Doesn't even matter if that's important to what they're doing right now. He's weak. Let's get him and take his stuff. That's Niho. Next we have the Ramen. Now these were the book standard regular Hummas, the ones that you see in all the artwork and stuff. And I thought, okay, we're gonna have this as like our base. This is the proverbial normal looking Humma of all of the houses. And one could argue that they were the most civilized of the bunch, because they would at least give you the opportunity to define or explain your existence before they try to kill you. They will tolerate disrespect to a degree, but not insults. You insult them, that's it, you're gonna die. One thing that was also noteworthy about the Raven is because there were more of them and they were a little more spread throughout the frontier, they were looking at the frontier as like, we'd like to take this someday. This should be ours. If there weren't so many darn other populations of all these other races, we would take over, but they haven't and they didn't get to. But that's sort of in their mind. That's their motivation is, we want this. This is going to be our empire someday. And as a result, you would encounter them on all of the different worlds because they're sitting there, they're taking notes like, okay, when we take over, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and look out for these guys and all that kind of stuff. So at least it made sense why the Raven were the more popular or most often seen. That's why they're kind of the base Humma. Here's a very obvious low-hanging fruit type of one. These are the Chultra. And we're talking Neanderthal, like basic, slow-witted maybe, Hummas from the Arctic region. Big, heavy bodies, sloping foreheads, big tusks. These were the guys that were kind of the main laboring, like these are the Vikings, if you will, or the dwarves of the Humma race. These are the Chultra, and they're very fairly accepting of other alien races. They realize that they're not the sharpest tool in the shed, but they're also wise enough to know to get out there and to start arming themselves with other people's equipment, because they know the other houses of the Humma fealty will definitely come after them at some point and want to wipe them out. So they're like, okay, we're going to go out there and we're going to make sure we arm ourselves and get ourselves ready. Basically think a big, tough barbarian type of Humma. That's the Chultra. And because the other houses look down on the Chultra as like the idiots, they tend to be, the actual Chultra themselves tend to be pretty short-tempered when it comes to encounters with other Hummas. If like a Raven or a Nriho was there in a bar and made some passing comment about a Chultra being nearby, that's it. You're gonna die. They will immediately fly off the handle and take them down, because that's the antagonism between this house and all of the other houses. We're not dumb. Stop thinking of us as dumb. Think of us as berserkers. And to go hand in hand with that, they actually see all of the other aliens as kind of useful to have around. And the UPF, it all kind of made sense. We're going to be up against the Sathar. We need to make sure we're all banded together and working together towards something. So for the dumbest of the Hummas, they're actually pretty wise. Like, they're thinking, no, we kind of need to be out there with all the Dralicites and Brusks and Yazarians, pretty cool guys, because the Sathar are out there, and we want to make sure there's never going to be a chance of us getting wiped out by the Sathar. So they were very slow-witted, but also smart enough to know there is a good amount of security in having good relationships with all the other races, unlike their brothers. And that brings us to the final house of the Hummas, before we get into the final part of the video, the Mpestra. Now, these guys were kind of unusual. I thought to myself, let's make yet another weird split here. The Mpestra have got white versions of themselves, black versions of themselves, and kind of a border collie / dairy cow mixture patchwork of black and white. And in their little house, they actually divided up what the role is for each of them. The black ones were kind of the military. Now, of course, we're talking a warrior race, so aren't they all military? Well, yeah, but among the white versions they were more the scientific crowd, and then the mixed ones, they were laborers and or technicians. So, like, still on the same. They all viewed each other as equal. Like this, there was no hierarchy or caste system within the house of the Mpestra. They were instead more looking at each other like you're like blondes, brunettes, and redheads, if that makes sense. Like, they were aware of each other's differences, and they tended to divide up. Black ones are warriors, white ones are science, and mixed colored ones are the laborer crowd, but they are, if they encounter each other, and in fact that happened in one of my campaigns, talk about that in a sec. If they encounter each other, they are on an even keel. Not compared to all the other houses. Heck, the other ones, like if we encounter some Hralings, forget that stuff. Which is interesting to note. The Infestra actually were defeated and enslaved by the Hralings 40 years ago in my campaign. And the reason you would encounter any of the Infestra out there in the frontier is because they had escaped. They got away from the Hralings, their overlords, and they were spread to the far corners of the frontier. They were like, okay, we got away from our home star system, we got away from the Hralings, now we got to eke out an existence. So they had an unusual little backstory to them of like, hey, you know, we're out here and we're trying to like eke out an existence away from our slaving overlords, the Hralings. That made for kind of an interesting little story. And in fact, so one of my players actually got to play a Humma, Daryl. He got to play one of them, and he wanted to go for something really cool. I'm like, are we going to be a... No, you're going to start off kind of basic, not even a Raven. You're actually going to be an Infestra. As a result, he was like, he had almost no real equipment, no real standing to him compared to the other houses of the Humma different cadres, but he did move among the Drylsets, the humans, the Usarians, etc. He went from world to world, and I'll never forget one of my favorite bits. He met up with our player group, and they were doing some stuff. The same ones who encountered the Hralings, the red ones. I believe they were in a bar. I'm pretty sure this was Port Lorraine. They were in a bar, and a Raven Humma was off in the corner, and Daryl thought, you could probably help us because the Hralings are here. They shouldn't be on Port Lorraine. They're all like in disguise. If I approach you, maybe we can talk about this. So he did, and the Infestra was like, yes, what do you want? Because we're okay. We're cool with each other, but what business brings you to me? And Daryl explained their situation and all that kind of stuff. And I can't remember exactly what the dealio was, but the funny thing, the ending of their conversation, this Raven had said to him, okay, you know, you make a good point, you sell a good story here. You're asking me to do a lot of stuff, and I'm just not convinced this is going to work out in my favor. But I'll tell you what, come back in 10 days, and if you're still around, we'll talk about it. Yeah, he wasn't around in 10 days, so that Raven was rather smart to do that little ploy. I remember that scene. That was something that kind of always stuck with me. So now there's another problem. When I was thinking to myself, yeah, this is a pretty cool little bunch of different races and ways to deal with the Hummas. I like this. It's got some good bones on it. Well, think of all the material, all the stealth and intrigue of these different houses of Hummas, all dealing with each other and spread across the frontier, being adventurers, getting by, doing whatever they got to do. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, one big problem with this annoying race, and we'll talk about why people really didn't like the Hummas that much, but one big problem is going to be, how are you going to go into a shop and like replenish your equipment or buy some more ammunition or get medical aid? If you're a bunch of obnoxious, like not even Klingon types, but like these ruling elite pricks, how are you ever going to manage as a player? How are you going to get by? How are you going to actually have anybody work with you, deal with you? So I thought to myself, I was getting into, I was at the age where I was becoming more and more aware of like modern day politics and real world political intrigue. And I thought I'll grab some ideas from stuff that I saw in the news, among which was the idea of like, okay, so in the frontier, they want the Hummas to be helping them because they are another warrior race to help against the Sathar. And there's enough of them that are cool and willing to hang out and help, so they could be part of our society. But the Hummas, all of them, had decided, nope, we don't want to be members, we don't want to be citizens of your frontier. No, thank you. We have our own things we are drawing up in our mind when it comes to you and your people, and we do not want to become citizens of the frontier. What they arranged with all the different governments was to have an embassy in every major city, where, from a player's point of view, you could go and replenish your supplies and get medical help and get some money if you needed it, all that kind of good stuff. I called these buildings the Kairiai. I don't know, I'm really into a lot of letter I guess. It's kind of like the Wookiee planet. Is that called Kashyyyk? Kashyyyk? What is that? Anyway, so the Kairiai is an embassy in every major city that each of the houses of the Hummas own. There's a crawling Kairiai. There is a rabid Kairiai in every city. And you must be thinking to yourself, what government in their right mind would do that? Well, short version is there were a lot of planets south of the frontier map that the Hummas owned as part of their empire, and they had great resources, huge piles of different things that people need. And so, of course, a government is going to turn a blind eye to that and say, yeah, sure, you're going to give us all of this stuff and we're going to be another assistance in the case the Sathar attack. Absolutely. You want some of these embassies, these Kairs? What are they? I don't know what they are. Yeah, sure. Go ahead and build them. And the little development that occurred from that was that that there were a couple of times where Hummas would kill people on the streets, and the cops would show up and the players would witness this. And all the Hummas had to do was hold up a badge or a symbol or whatever it was and just say, diplomatic immunity, and they would be allowed to just walk away because they had their embassies in every town, in every city, and the governments had all agreed, hey, these guys have got a lot of resources and they're a bit weird, and we're gonna, as long as they don't wipe out large numbers of people, as long as they have a little bit of sense, we'll let this slide. And that was sort of again, I'm in my 20s and I'm kind of like, God, look at all these terrible things going on in the world, and diplomats can just declare immunity and never have any repercussions from it. So that's what was going on, and my players found that really annoying. Also, a side note, there was a rule among all the Hummas with regards to their embassies, their Kairiais. No alien is allowed to see inside. Never gonna happen. They always had these multiple security doors. Not like there was really anything exciting in there, but it was a source of pride for the Hummas. You're not allowed in here. You're not allowed to see in here. So that was a weird quirk for the Kairiai. And the staff, the inhabitants inside the embassy, they would check what's your standing with the house, because if you're Nravan and you have brought a lot of important things, you've made some important changes, if you are elevated in status in the house, absolutely, come on in, we'll give you all the medical treatment you need and all the supplies. You want a new laser rifle, we'll give you that too. The flip side being, if you have failed them, they may or may not necessarily help you. It's like, okay, what have you done for us lately? I'm reminded of the scene in the Da Vinci Code where the albino priest goes into the church was that in Paris? It's somewhere you can go, but if you've got some questionable status, they're not necessarily going to always help you. That kind of thing. And similar to that scene in the Da Vinci Code, no Kairiai will ever close its doors on a member of the house. As bad as you have messed up, they will let you in. But if you require something from them, they may need you to pay back the debt. Okay, you have messed up. We have talked to the house and you are disgraced. We'll take care of you, but now you have to repay your debt to us. That was a thing. And of course, little asterisk on all of this, the Investra, those guys, because they're on the run from the Hrallings and their empire, they have no Kairiais to their name. And that's why it actually made it easy for me to have Daryl start off as one, because it's like, okay, you don't have the vast resources that a Kairiai will give any Humma player. We're going to start you off baby steps here. You've got to earn your way, and being a mere Investra, you have to build your status up. You don't have a Kairiai that you can just walk into. Speaking of Humma tactics and what jerks they were. There was one scene that I'll never forget, and I don't remember where it was, which campaign. Might have been Bubba on Turlodrom with the pile of sulfur. I can't remember exactly. But there was a bit where all the Hummas, where a crowd of characters encountered a crowd of Hummas. And the Hummas immediately formed, like, they pushed themselves all back so that they were in a center. And the bad guys, or the pirates, whatever they were, they kind of formed a circle around them, like, ha-ha, we've got you now, we've got you surrounded. And then and the Hummas are all sitting there sneering and laughing and cackling and like licking their chops like they have a plan. And one of the characters suddenly realizes, oh, this is that thing they do where they know exactly when we're going to shoot, and they all jump out of the center and we all kill each other because they've accidentally lined us up so that we're all going to kill each other in our crossfire when they all jump out of the way. So that's the kind of thing. Like, it was this moment of, oh man, these Hummas are nasty. Like, they've got all of this. Shooting guys in the back is okay. Never give them a chance. Yeah, you go ahead and surround us. We're going to jump at the exact moment and you're all going to kill each other. You know, that kind of thing. That was what I liked about my Hummas. So, there's the nastiness. Here we are in this pleasant environment. Why am I talking about it here? I chose this spot because this reminds me a bit of Caladan from the Dune stories, where Duke Leto Atreides and Jessica take Paul away from this world and they go into the planet Arrakis. The reason why, and the reason this video is saying that my Hummas were looking for Duke Leto Atreides, I was watching the 85 version of Dune. And I was taken with a couple of scenes where they leave Caladan. And I remember thinking to myself, there's something in this. There's something in this sequence where they're all aboard their ship and they're in their finery and they're taking off and you get to see all the ships. You know the bit in the movie. A little shot of inspiration struck me. I thought, here is one of these houses of this science fiction setting that is admirable. Like, Duke Leto Atreides is such a heroic figure. Paul, in the 80s version, yes. In the modern version, no. And apparently in the books, not so much. But Duke Leto was sort of this, I don't care what value the spice has. I don't want people to die. Like, a really heroic, admirable character. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, that's got a notion in it. What if my Hummas, this house system that they had, what if there used to be another house, an eighth one, whatever the number is, that was beneficial and altruistic, the heroic house of the Hummas, the good guys, basically. And as I started to piece these things together, I thought, yeah, there's something there. Imagine another house above imagine another race, another house of Hummas. And I never detailed this. I never came up with a name for them. I never had a look for them. It was just a kernel of a thought in my head. Please, feel free to fill in these gaps. If you want to do this idea for either your Hummas or for some alien race, and you want to come up with this good house at the top, feel free, because I never did have any plans for it, but please feel free. But I thought to myself, yeah, what if there was in their history a good house, a proper, noble, giving, charitable house that all of the other nasty bunches of Hummas used to look up to and go, man, these are the great house, and we are all just sniveling, fighting children underneath them. And something happened, whether it was a civil war, some kind of backstab, because again, I was watching Dune at the time, so it was from the idea that the Emperor gives them Arrakis as a backstab, like maybe somebody betrayed this noble house, and they all got wiped out, leaving the empty throne that the decided this is ours, and then the Hralling were like, no, we will fight you for it, and it caused a giant civil war. And this is the conflict, this is the This is the nastiness. This is why these Hummas are all such jerks, let's be honest. Like, they fight amongst each other, they squabble, they are angry, they've had their best, the best part of Humma culture has been ripped away, destroyed, betrayed, wiped out. Just something has happened to this noble race, this noble house that was at the top, leaving behind the shatters of an empire that now all of these other houses are all fighting for control and grabbing what they can. And I thought, yeah, there's something there. That's an awesome idea. Again, never went through with it. Never figured out any of the details. My campaign didn't really involve Hummas that often, way more than the Sathar. I've done a video about how I almost never use the Sathar. But with my Hummas, I had connective tissue to make interesting combat, interesting, we don't know if we trust these guys, you know, a new kind of warrior that could, you know, compete with, like, the Yazarians are an awesome warrior race. I love those guys. There's another non-Yazarian warrior race, and they're not like Klingons either. So I've got what I was looking for. I got that material that now I can do a lot of fighting and conflict and stuff. And I just thought to myself, watching Dune, I remember thinking to myself, there's like a golden ring that used to hold everything together in Humma society. This wonderful, heroic, altruistic, pleasant Humma house. And they were wiped out, betrayed, destroyed. Something happened to them. I don't know what. You make that up if you want to do any of this stuff. And now they are gone. Maybe. I mean, maybe they're not. Maybe they're in hiding. Maybe there's only a handful of them left. That would make an interesting dramatic story. But yes, the remaining broken kingdom, the shattered throne that is left behind, all of these other houses are now vying for control and fighting for it. And so that's why, for this video, I have finally revealed my Hummas were looking for Duke Leto Atreides. And it's rather sad. It has a pang of, like, tragedy to it. You know, it makes a villain much more interesting if there's like a sadness to them. And I thought to myself, yeah, that really works. The Hummas have this sad element. They don't have the Atreides house anymore. It's gone. It's been wiped out. And that's sad. Anyway, so this is a rather lengthy video, and I know some people really enjoy these, so I'm doing as many as I can that are not too specific to my campaign. I figured this one is very specific to my campaign, but you could use this. There are maybe elements here you want to invest into your Hummas, or make up a new race, make it not cat warrior, please, and do something with it. I feel, you know, I feel like this has got a lot of potential. It was in my mind. I just thought, yes, there's a way to make that into an interesting soap opera, space opera, which is great for Star Frontiers. So I hope you all enjoy that. I'm going to finish here. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.